MySpace. I use most of my stuff to get research and facts about life, about different subjects I may be working on in school, maybe.
Email for work and everything.
I use it to look for jobs. I'm trying to learn.
I'm only just now becoming computer literate. I like learning. I'm just sorry I hadn't gotten started on it earlier.
Mostly work. I'd say a very small percentage of time learning, but really not much in the actual education department.
I use it to communicate, I use it to collaborate, I use it to attract people, I use it to cajole people. I use it for a lot of different things, and a lot of different reasons, both personally and also in my business.
Good morning, Alex.
Good morning. Yes, hi.
How you doing?
Good.
So last time we were talking, we left off with the idea of fear being a big part of the unknown, the new things, the new technologies that are in place. How do you allow them to let it sort of insinuate themselves into the way that they think? Because that's the really scary thing, that type of change. And that seems to be what people are most resistant to. And that's where we talk about fear, to me. Does that seem to be what your experience?
Well, it's, fear is based on what we're familiar with. We're stuck in one of two mindsets. We're either stuck, we're actually either inspired, to respond to new things, or we're stuck in the past. We're stuck with history, and we're stuck repeating history.
And that's why you use the term provincial, because it really is. Things are changing quickly enough and in fundamental ways that you risk becoming provincial if you don't adopt at least some of the newer technologies.
Absolutely. Your main focus is on what? Maintaining status quo or feeling comfortable. Well, what's comfort? Comfort is based on the past, what you've already experienced. So you're in the past or you're inspired. Inspired to embrace technology, inspired to embrace learning new things. And if you're not inspired, then you're dealing with fear. You're up against this wall that says, please, you're gonna tear me down if I learn anything new. So give me a good reason as to why I should destroy this wall. And so, but when we realize it's just perception, it's just air, it's just an opinion of something that we emotionally feel connected to. It's like the iPhone. There are a lot of people that are inspired to use, to buy the iPhone, right? And then there are those that are terrified of it. There are those that still have phones that they purchased in '97.
A long time ago.
Yes, they're still using it. I remember using the old the old Motorola phone. It looks like it was about this big, and has a nice little cord antenna on the end, and you basically, you felt like you holstered this thing every time you unholstered it, every time you had to talk.
It reminds me of those old World War II footage where the radio guy comes along and it's pretty much the same handset.
Right.
And they lost the backpack in 40 years, but they kept the same handset.
Absolutely, absolutely. So really, it's about us being willing to face our fear of letting go of issues and things that are not of great concern or interest than they are now. I mean, basically allowing ourselves to adapt to existing technology. Existing technology. It changes every day. So it's existing, Before we had innovation cycles, we had new product cycles that were 10 years in coming. We kind of knew what was going on. The only individuals who knew what was coming were those that were hidden in these labs, no one knew about. And all of a sudden there was a product on the market. Now it's just constant, Every other week there's a new product introduced. Every 6 months there's a new product introduced. Every year in certain industries that revolutionizes the way in which people think and function in a particular industry is there. Now we expect change. Before we fought the change, we said, okay, new revision on a piece of software. Software is probably the most dynamic example of change. Because, new version, new virus, new worm, new version.
Well, now you're only talking about Windows.
Okay.
So Windows is the majority of things, but that's not the way software has to be.
You're absolutely right, and we'll give it to Mac that, the Mac, Apple has done a great job of
course, they're based on open source. I'm an open source guy.
Okay. Speaking of open source,
do you think
it's really open learning. right?
Open learning, that's right, open learning.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's open learning. So that's good. That's very good.
Well, either way, software.
I knew you had to throw that open source thing in, but that's okay. That's good. I still love you. You know.
All right. Hey, Alex.
How are you?
How you doing
Good.
this morning?
Very good.
Hey,
Very good.
you know, we left off with some fear issues and this and that, and we sort of ended up with open source, which of course I feel is the antidote to everything that ails mankind. Open source is the answer. But, you know, if we're talking about the antidote to fear in a real way,
Right.
isn't it growth? Isn't it new things? Isn't it getting excited about the new things that are going on?
Well, you know, as we shared before, you know, we talked about two things, you know, that most of us experience, all of us experience, and that is, you know, either we're inspired or, you know, we are stuck in the past. And so, given that fact, when we look at growth, we really have to look at growth from a bigger picture standpoint. You know, being inspired about, you know, new things happening, change happening, learning, you know, new things, being willing to face our fears, to let go of the past. And most of us, that's a challenge because it's like our foundation. And then suddenly we wake up one day and go, gee, you know, that wasn't so hard.
Better way of doing things.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm always a big fan of, you know, the better way of doing things is almost always not the newest way.
Right.
But certainly the new ways that have become obvious.
Right.
Don't you think we're pretty much there in terms of the new way of doing things?
Well, you know, we're evolving to newer ways of doing things. You know, so it's like ongoing, whether we accept it or not. It's like global warming. You know, we're dealing with this issue. We're not quite clear about the issue, but we know something's happening.
I mean, the jury's still not out?
Oh, well, you know, well, hey, you know, Al Gore won, you know, Nobel Peace Prize, you know, for, you know, his documentary associated with global warming. So what does that tell us? That tells us that it is a subject that that is important to a lot of people, you know. And so something we need to pay attention to, but also it means that we have to be more attuned to what's happening in the environment and be willing to respond to what's happening in the environment. And that's why e-learning or how about this? You know, as we were talking, I had this thought. I said, well, look, you know, instead of, you know, saying e-learning, because, you know, we're kind of beating that word down, you know, a bit, what about e-literacy? And e-literacy basically means, you know, we need to just simply collaborate, communicate, and interact with each other, socialize with each other in any environment that allows us to do that.
And the nice thing about the word literacy is it, like what you're trying to do, I think the message you're trying to get across in many ways is this technology can be pervasive in our lives and in a good way.
Right.
To help enrich it.
Absolutely.
And make things more open. But at the same time, literacy is more, literacy isn't just for those people that have never had a formal education.
Right.
Literacy is at any level of things.
Absolutely.
Anything endeavor you're doing, you want to say, well, I have a particular level of literacy here.
Absolutely.
So your use of the word literacy is more open and broad, is like
it happens
more in the way of enriching your life.
Absolutely.
In the way that an education was designed to do. You know, when the formal education first started coming out historically, I mean, wasn't that the idea? Was it enriches your life? It's not just a professional endeavor or a trade endeavor, but to enrich.
Absolutely. It happens everywhere all the time. You know, and it's like when we allow ourselves to experience a moment, to be aware of something, then we learn something. And if we're not willing to do that, then what happens is we're actually stuck in a world inside of our head that keeps us moving, you know, on and on. You know, an interesting phenomena that's emerging, you know, as it relates to e-learning and also collaboration and socialization, all those things we talked about earlier, has to do with, you know, online communities, like, for example, Second Life.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what Second Life is all about. I've heard about it. I've played with it a little bit, but I just heard Sweden opened up their consulate there online.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see,
they're the first government, and usually governments are the last. So, you know, this is interesting stuff. Second Life is pretty compelling, I think.
Well, you know, it's an example of people finding creative ways to communicate in such a way that it allows them more freedom of expression without being judged. And of course,